So picture this. The Galactic Council is basically having the worst day in their entire history. They've been screaming into void for 3 whole cycles, sending out emergency beacons like their lives depend on it. Because, well, they literally do. These aren't your typical, help us move furniture kind of calls. This is full-blown panic mode. The kind where you're checking under your bed for monsters, except the monsters are real, and they're eating entire planets for breakfast. The fancy Alturian Defense Fleet? Yeah, they're still weeks away, probably stuck in traffic somewhere in the Andromeda sector. The super-advanced crystalline hegemony, with all their shiny technology and superiority complex, they basically looked at the situation, said, not our problem, and hung up faster than a telemarketer calling during dinner time. Thanks for nothing, crystal guys. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Council had sent distress signals to everyone, and I mean everyone. They contacted civilizations they hadn't talked to in centuries, species they barely remembered existed. Even those weird energy beings who communicate through interpretive dance. Most of them either ignored the calls completely or sent back polite. We're busy washing our hair responses. The galaxy, it turns out, is full of fair-weather friends. But then something incredible happens. A response comes from the one place nobody expected. Those Deathworld sectors that every civilized species marks as stay the hell away on their maps. You know those parts of the galaxy where your GPS just says, here be dragons, and smart people take the long way around? Yeah, those places. The message comes through in broken galactic standard, like someone learning a foreign language from a badly translated manual. Got your message. Coming now. Don't move. The council members are looking at each other like, did we just get a response from the cosmic equivalent of the wrong side of the tracks? These are the sectors where planets are so hostile that just looking at them wrong could give you 3 different types of cancer. The kind of worlds where the weather forecast includes things like acid rain with a chance of volcanic explosions and partly cloudy with meteor showers. What shows up next on their sensors makes every alarm go off at once. We're talking red lights, sirens, the works, like a fire department, police station, and hospital all having simultaneous emergencies. Something absolutely massive is tearing through hyperspace at speeds that should atomize any known ship. The physics alone should have turned whatever was coming into cosmic dust. But there it is, breaking every law of science like they're more like suggestions. The Zephyrian colonies are the ones in trouble here. Picture the most beautiful, peaceful butterfly people you can imagine. These beings are so gentle they apologize to flowers before picking them. Their entire civilization is built on harmony, art, and probably really good herbal tea. They've never hurt anyone, never started wars, never even raised their voices above a polite whisper. They're basically the galaxy's favorite neighbors, the ones who bring you cookies and water your plants when you're away. And they're about 3 days from being completely wiped out by something called the Void Swarm. This isn't your garden variety pest problem. This thing is a nightmare plague from outside the galaxy that's already eaten 17 entire star systems. Not conquered, eaten, as in, those systems don't exist anymore. They're gone, wiped clean like someone erased them from reality itself. The Void Swarm doesn't take prisoners, doesn't negotiate, doesn't even leave ruins behind. It just consumes everything and moves on, like the universe's worst locust plague. The terrifying part? This thing learns. Every time someone fights it, it adapts, grows stronger, develops new ways to counter whatever weapons you throw at it. Entire battle fleets have engaged this nightmare and simply vanished. No distress calls, no final messages, just silence where proud civilizations used to be. It's the kind of threat that makes grown admirals cry into their morning coffee. And the only ones answering the call for help? The humans. The same species the Council wrote off as barely civilized savages just 200 years ago. These are the beings most of the galaxy still thinks of as primitive newcomers who just figured out faster than light travel, and are probably still impressed by shiny objects. The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations are either too busy, too scared, or too proud to help, but the species everyone looks down on is charging headfirst into certain doom to save people they barely know. It's like watching the quiet kid from the back of the class volunteer to fight the school bully when all the popular kids suddenly have somewhere else to be. when that human fleet drops out of hyperspace, it's like watching reality get punched in the face. The very fabric of space seems to ripple and tear as 67 ships materialize from nothing, each one a testament to humanity's unique approach to engineering. Every single vessel looks like it's been through hell and came back asking for seconds. These are museum pieces or parade floats. These are working ships that have seen real action. Picture this. While other civilizations build their ships to look impressive at diplomatic meetings, humans build theirs to survive. The hulls are scarred and dented, painted in colors that don't exist in any interior design magazine. Some ships have entire sections that look like they've been rebuilt 3 times over, welded together with whatever materials were handy. One destroyer has what appears to be part of an asteroid incorporated into its armor plating, because apparently humans looked at a space rock and thought, you know what? That'll work. These aren't the sleek, pretty ships you see from advanced civilizations. Those other species build vessels that look like art projects, all smooth curves and gleaming surfaces, designed to impress visitors at spaceports. Human ships look like they were designed by people who understand that space is actively trying to kill you, and they're not going to make it easy. These things are pure weapons, forged on a world that spent millions of years trying to kill everything on it, and somehow the survivors decided that was good practice for building spacecraft. The differences are immediately obvious to anyone watching. Zephyrian ships look like delicate flowers that might fold up if you sneeze too hard. Altrurian vessels resemble floating palaces, with more windows than walls. The crystalline hegemony builds ships that are basically giant jewels with engines. But human ships? They look like someone took a brick, strapped rockets to it, and covered the whole thing in guns. Form follows function, and the function is don't die in space. Admiral Rebecca Thompson's voice cuts through every comm channel like she's ordering coffee at a drive-thru, not preparing for the fight of the century. There's this casual confidence that makes everyone listening do a double take. Council forces, this is Human Fleet Command. We hear you got some bugs that need squashing. Might want to back up a bit. We're about to show you why Earth gets the Class 12 Death World rating. The way she says bugs is particularly striking. Here's this nightmare entity that's consumed 17 star systems, and she's calling it bugs. It's like calling a hurricane a bit breezy, or referring to a volcano as slightly warm. The other species have been using terms like existential threat and galactic-level extinction event, but humans just call it pest control. The Zephyrians can barely process what they're seeing and hearing. These beautiful, artistic beings are used to solving problems through dialogue and compromise. Their idea of conflict resolution involves sitting in circles, sharing feelings, and maybe composing a poem about their differences. They've been watching this void swarm thing steamroll through civilizations like they're made of paper, and they're absolutely terrified. This void swarm isn't some minor inconvenience. It's the kind of threat that makes entire species pack up their belongings, load everyone into generation ships, and go looking for a new galaxy to call home. Whole civilizations have taken one look at this thing and decided that running away to another dimension sounds like a reasonable Tuesday afternoon plan. And here come these humans, talking about it like it's just another day at the office. Not even a particularly interesting day at the office. More like the day when the coffee machine breaks and someone has to call maintenance. There's no panic in their voices, no desperate prayers to whatever gods they worship, no dramatic speeches about facing their doom with honor. Just, yeah, we'll handle it. Stand back. The contrast is mind-boggling. You got species with technology so advanced they can fold space-time like origami, and they're running scared. Meanwhile, the humans who still think duct tape is a valid engineering solution are cracking their knuckles and asking where they should start. It's like watching a group of professors with multiple PhDs panic about a math problem, while the construction worker in the back raises his hand and says he's got this. The swarm is about to learn something new today. What happens when an unstoppable force meets a species that considers extinction events a warm-up exercise? These are beings whose planet tried to kill them with ice ages, meteor impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and probably a few things that don't even have names yet. And somehow, instead of dying out like any sensible species would, humans looked at all that chaos and thought, you know what? This is making us stronger. What happens next breaks every rule of space combat ever written. Picture every military textbook in the galaxy suddenly becoming worthless paper. Every strategy course, every tactical simulation, every how to fight in space without dying horribly manual, all that goes out the window in about 30 seconds. Any sane military would engage this nightmare from maximum range. You know, the sensible approach, park your fleet as far away as physically possible, throw everything you have at the enemy, and hope for the best. It's like fighting a grizzly bear with a really, really long stick. Keep that dangerous thing as far from you as possible and poke it until it stops moving. That's Military Strategy 101, taught in every war college across the galaxy. The humans? They take one look at this textbook approach and decide it's for weaklings. They punch the accelerator and drive straight into the writhing mass of biomechanical horror, like they're late for a dinner reservation. It's the tactical equivalent of seeing a house fire and deciding the best approach is to run inside and give a hug. The council forces watching from a safe distance are probably having collective heart attacks. Imagine you're watching a nature documentary, and instead of the gazelle running away from the lions, it charges directly at them while screaming. That's what this looks like to every other species. Complete insanity disguised as a battle plan. These human ships, built from the bones of a world that forged them through ice ages and asteroid impacts, slice through swarm formations that have obliterated entire battle fleets. We're talking about formations that turn proud armadas into floating scrap metal, and the humans are carving through them like a hot knife through butter. Their ships weren't designed in comfortable laboratories by engineers sipping tea. They were built by people who understand that space is trying to kill you, and the only reasonable response is to be more dangerous than space itself. The human vessels move with a kind of controlled chaos that's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They're not following elegant formation patterns like other fleets. Instead, they're weaving and diving through enemy clusters like they're playing some kind of deadly game of tag. One moment a human cruiser is engaged in a traditional gun battle. The next it's spinning like a top while firing in all directions, somehow managing to hit 3 different swarm entities while dodging return fire that should have vaporized it. The Void Swarm does what it always does when faced with new tactics. It adapts. This is what makes it so absolutely terrifying. Watch it fight for 5 minutes, and it's already growing new weapons in real time, evolving countermeasures to every human tactic within minutes. It's like playing chess against an opponent who can change the rules mid-game and sprout new pieces from thin air. When humans use energy weapons, the swarm grows energy-resistant armor. When they switch to projectile weapons, it develops kinetic barriers. It's learning from every exchange, every mistake, every successful hit. The biomechanical nightmare is essentially turning itself into the perfect counter for human tactics, which should be the end of the story. Any other species would see this adaptation and retreat to develop new strategies. But here's the thing about humans. They adapt faster. Not just faster, but in ways that don't make sense to anyone else watching. They fight like their death world taught them to fight, with the desperate creativity of predators who climbed to the top of the food chain by refusing to stay dead when everything was trying to kill them. When their primary weapons get neutralized by swarm adaptation, do they retreat to regroup? Nope. They ram their ships directly into swarm clusters like they're playing the galaxy's most violent game of bumper cars. The other species watching this are probably wondering if humans understand that spaceships are expensive and take years to build. When their shields fail under the adapted swarm weapons, instead of falling back to protect their remaining defenses, humans do something that makes every engineer in the galaxy weep into their coffee. They vent their own atmosphere as projectiles, turning their life support systems into improvised weapons. They're literally breathing their air at the enemy, and somehow it's working. When conventional tactics fail completely, and any reasonable species would either retreat or surrender, humans do something absolutely insane that no other species has ever tried in the history of galactic warfare. They board the enemy's ships, not with drones or robots, but with actual people in power armor, carrying weapons and what can only be described as barely controlled fury. The galaxy watches in complete shock as humans in power armor tear through biomechanical corridors, carrying explosives and determination into the heart of something that's never faced prey that fights back. These corridors weren't designed for visitors. They're organic, twisted passages that pulse and shift, designed to disorient and trap intruders. Captain William Rodriguez leads the first boarding party personally, and his transmission back to the fleet perfectly captures the human approach to impossible situations. Interior's a bit cramped, but nothing we can't handle. The moment that changes everything comes when Admiral Thompson makes a decision that's going to be studied in military academies for the next 1,000 years. Picture this scene. The human fleet is giving everything they've got. Their ships are battered and smoking, and even human stubbornness is starting to meet its match. The Void Swarm just keeps coming with endless waves of biomechanical nightmares, like a cosmic zombie movie, where the zombies have really good technology and terrible attitudes. Most admirals at this point would be thinking about strategic retreats, regrouping, maybe calling for backup from 3 galaxies over. But Admiral Thompson looks at the situation and decides to do something that violates every principle of space warfare that's been written down, taught in schools, or even whispered about in dark corners of military bars. She orders her fleet to take the fight into the gravity well of Zephyr Prime itself. Now, to understand why this is absolutely insane, you need to know that space combat typically happens in, well, space. The empty void where there's nothing to crash into, no weather to worry about, and plenty of room to maneuver. Fighting near a planet is like trying to have a sword fight while standing on a tightrope over a volcano. It adds way too many ways for things to go horribly wrong. The other council forces watching this unfold are probably having emergency meetings to figure out if they should classify this as brilliant, or if they should start planning Admiral Thompson's memorial service. The idea of intentionally diving into a planetary gravity well during combat is so crazy that most species don't even have words for it in their languages. But here's where it gets interesting. The swarm follows them down, confident in their overwhelming numbers, not realizing they're being led into a trap that's been millions of years in the making. These biomechanical entities have been adapting to every human tactic, learning and countering everything the fleet throws at them. So they figure this is just humans making one last desperate mistake before getting wiped out. What the swarm doesn't understand is something fundamental about humans. See, humans didn't just learn to fight on their death world. They learned to fight with it. While other species learned to overcome their planetary environment or escape from it, humans looked at all the dangerous stuff on Earth and thought, you know what? We should weaponize this. Gravity? That's not just a force that keeps your feet on the ground. That's a tool. Atmosphere? Not just something to breathe, but something that can burn, compress, and crush. Weather patterns, magnetic fields, even the rotation of the planet itself. Humans figured out how to turn all of it into weapons. It's like the difference between learning to swim and learning to turn the ocean into your personal army. The human fleet schemes through Zephyr Prime's upper atmosphere. Their ships built to handle stresses that would crush any other technology like tin cans. Remember, these vessels were designed by people whose home planet regularly throws asteroids, ice ages, and volcanic explosions at them just to keep things interesting. A little atmospheric pressure is basically a light breeze to ships built to survive on a death world. But the swarm? These biomechanical entities have been perfectly adapted for the void of space, where there's no air resistance, no weather patterns, no magnetic fields to worry about. They're like deep-sea fish that suddenly find themselves in a mountain stream. Everything that made them perfectly suited for their environment is now working against them. As soon as they hit Zephyr Prime's thick atmosphere, the swarm entities start burning up and breaking apart like meteors. The same atmospheric forces that the human ships shrug off are tearing the biomechanical nightmares into pieces. Their adaptive armor that worked perfectly in space suddenly becomes a liability when it has to deal with friction, heat, and pressure it was never designed to handle. This is when the humans strike with surgical precision. While the swarm is struggling just to stay in one piece, the human fleet moves through the atmosphere like they were born for this kind of fighting. They're not just surviving in conditions that are destroying their enemy, they're thriving in it. Lieutenant Robert Chun, coordinating the atmospheric strike from his position aboard the cruiser, reports back with typical human understatement. Swarm entities are not enjoying the weather down here, proceeding with cleanup operations. The guy is basically watching an extinction-level threat tear itself apart in the wind, and he talks about it like he's commenting on a mild rainstorm. But the humans aren't done yet. They're using Zephyr Prime's own magnetic field to focus their weapons into concentrated beams that carve the swarm apart from the inside out. It's like turning the entire planet into a giant lens that amplifies their firepower. Other species use planets as places to hide behind or resources to fight over. Humans use them as massive weapons platforms. The Zephyrians, those beautiful butterfly people, are watching their world become a battlefield and witnessing something that challenges everything they thought they knew about the universe. They spent their entire civilization believing in harmony with nature, and here are these humans showing them that you can have harmony with nature while simultaneously convincing nature to help you fight your battles. When the last swarm entity dissolves into atomic dust, scattered across Zephyr Prime's magnetosphere like cosmic glitter, the silence that follows is absolutely deafening. It's the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring, like the moment after a thunderclap, when your brain is still trying to catch up with what just happened. The entire galaxy seems to be holding its breath, waiting for someone to explain how the impossible just became routine. The human fleet hangs in orbit above Zephyr Prime, their ships looking like they've been through a blender, but somehow still functioning. Smoke trails drift from damaged hull sections. Entire weapon arrays are missing from some vessels, and at least 3 ships are held together by what appears to be emergency welding and sheer determination. But they're intact, they're operational, and most importantly, they're still here while their enemy isn't. Meanwhile, the entire galaxy is trying to process what they just witnessed. The Void Swarm, this nightmare that had consumed 17 star systems and sent entire civilizations running to other galaxies, has been reduced to floating particles that are probably going to make pretty sunsets on Zephyr Prime for the next few decades. It's like watching someone solve a Rubik's Cube by hitting it with a hammer, except somehow all the colors line up perfectly. The Zephyrians are probably going to need therapy. These peaceful, artistic beings just watched their world get turned into a weapon, saw atmospheric combat tactics that shouldn't exist, and witnessed humans treat planetary-scale warfare like a minor inconvenience. Their entire understanding of the universe has been turned upside down, shaken vigorously, and set back down facing the wrong direction. Other council species are frantically checking their sensor readings, running diagnostics on their equipment, and probably calling their science departments to ask if what they just saw was physically possible. The crystalline hegemony, who thought they were too advanced to help with this problem, are now realizing they just watched a species they consider primitive solve an extinction-level threat using tactics that aren't in any textbook. Admiral Thompson's final message to Galactic Council is delivered with the same casual tone she's used throughout the entire battle, like she's wrapping up a routine patrol report rather than announcing the end of a galactic crisis. Bug problem solved. Void Swarm has been dealt with. We're sending you the technical data to prevent future infestations. Standard death world protocols should work fine for most civilizations. The way she says bug problem is particularly striking. This entity that had the entire galaxy terrified, that made whole species pack up and move to different dimensions, gets dismissed as pest control. It's like calling a hurricane a bit of wind, or referring to a volcanic eruption as the ground getting warm. The understatement is so massive it's almost artistic. And then she offers to share the technical data, like she's giving out a recipe for chocolate chip cookies instead of military secrets that could revolutionize galactic warfare. Standard death world protocols, she calls them, as if every civilized species should obviously know how to turn planets into weapons and use atmospheric pressure as a tactical advantage. The Council's response is equal parts grateful and terrified. They're sending thank you messages while simultaneously updating their security protocols. It's like being rescued by a friendly dragon. You're grateful to be alive, but you're also acutely aware that your rescuer could probably toast your entire civilization if they were having a bad day. They asked for help and got it, but in the process, they've been reminded of a fundamental truth about the universe that most advanced civilizations prefer to forget. Sometimes the thing that saves you is scarier than the thing you needed saving from. It's like calling the fire department and having them put out the fire by summoning a controlled avalanche. Problem solved, but now you have new concerns. The human fleet begins its departure with the same casual efficiency they arrived with. No victory celebrations, no demand for payment or recognition, no speeches about galactic unity. They just pack up their weapons, run diagnostics on their battered ships, and head home like they finished a particularly routine day at the office. The contrast with how any other species would handle this moment is staggering. As they disappear back into hyperspace, the galaxy is left with a new reality to deal with. Somewhere out in the dark between stars, in those sectors marked as death worlds and avoid at all costs, there's a species that looked at extinction incarnate and saw nothing more threatening than a typical Tuesday afternoon. They turned a planet into a weapon, used atmospheric physics as a battle tactic, and treated the galaxy's worst nightmare like a minor inconvenience. The Council quietly updates humanity's file in their databases. The entry that once read primitive newcomers with basic technology now reads approach with extreme caution and possibly offerings of friendship. Some junior clerk suggests adding do not anger to the file, but a supervisor points out that's probably implied. And somewhere in the back of every council member's mind is the same uncomfortable thought. What other favors might they need to ask of their terrifying new protectors? Because let's be honest, if something worse than the Void Swarm shows up, there's only one number they're going to call. The humans might consider galactic extinction events a minor Tuesday inconvenience, but they're also the only ones who seem capable of doing anything about them.